in the first attempt, you will always find something because in my experience, there is something to find or there is something available. When the
Okay.
process carries on, you would see that okay, the developers are getting smarter, they are understanding the secure software development lifecycle, they are understanding the secure coding principles, and then those things. After that, you will, but still there are some kind of vulnerabilities which I call as business logic
Mm.
flaws that would happen. But then that would, after few iterations, it would be a rare sight to see if the DevSecOps practice is properly followed.
Welcome to the Elephant in AppSec, the podcast to explore, challenge, and boldly face the AppSec elephants in the room. I'm Alexandra, your host, joined by my amazing co-host Tristan, a former security engineer and co-founder of Escape. Today, we're excited to have an amazing guest, Harsh Modi, join us. With over 8 years of dedicated experience as an offensive security engineer and penetration tester, Harsh has honed an exceptional skill set in identifying and mitigating security vulnerabilities. Currently, he's an independent consultant and a lead security architect at Bell. Harsh is also an enthusiastic security researcher and has presented his research at various conferences such as OWASP Vancouver, BSides Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, and others, where he shared invaluable insights on different topics ranging from pentesting and Android applications to car hacking. Harsh also believes in giving back to the community, so he has a YouTube channel called Let's Talk Cyber. He is currently leading a mentorship program with more than 300 cybersecurity enthusiasts. With all his experience in pen testing, we decided to challenge him on the actual value of pen testing programs. Dive right in.
So, Harsh, glad to have you here on the Elephant in AppSec podcast as a guest today. We're going to talk about penetration testing, which is like something very famous that everyone discusses in cybersecurity. And from something I discussed with many security professionals, the cost of penetration testing ranges from $4,000 to $100,000 in average. But in reality, most of the pen tests are actually juniors, cybersecurity engineers running automated tools and exporting the report. So
Yeah.
is pen test worth the investment or is it overrated?
Yes. So there are two aspects of this here. First, I would like to say thank you for inviting me and giving me a chance to speak about the trends in pen testing and offensive security. So I consider this as a great opportunity. Thank you, Alexandra. Thank you, Tristan. I have seen your previous content with other recognized people in the industry, and you're doing a good job. I would say that, and keep this thing going. Yes. So coming back to your question, a lot of companies see this as when you start a business, people think that, okay, in business, what is the most profitable revenue? In cybersecurity, that is penetration testing because it is also very much critical. If things go wrong here, then you are really in trouble. A lot of people also confuse penetration testing with vulnerability assessment and management. So what are you saying is unfortunately true that there are some companies and industries and some consultants who does that buy a commercial or an enterprise tool and then just extract the reports, and then there is nothing found or there is no value in that. A real pen test has no range, like from 4,000 to 100,000. No, I have done pen tests that are over $800,000 as well. So there is no range here. And sometimes the presentation of those pen tests are only one slide. I'm not the guy who would say, okay, I am this person, that person. I just talk straight to the points. So that is also the trend into the industry. But a lot of See, our industry is new. Like, if you talk about the developing industry, it is there into the world for 30, 40 years. Early development started in 1980s or 1985s. I'm not good with dates, but around at that time. Cybersecurity started in 2005 because the US government saw it as a threat. I talk with people who started into the cybersecurity area in 2002, 2003, and everyone would consider them as as a jobless person. That's the real that's the real thing in those era. Even in 2015, when I was doing bachelor's, I was the only person saying that okay, I would go into this awesome field called cybersecurity, and everyone laughed on me. To be very honest, that oh, you will not find anything, and there is no market in here. If we will not develop something, how will you test it? So, but the real trend is that you are developing shitty products. So the testing is mandatory in those cases. So that is the trend. Coming back to our point, uh, a lot of people confuse vulnerability assessment, where you run uh, pre-commercial tools and try to get the idea of the organizations or the footprints. Now, penetration testing is also divided in a lot of steps. First, understanding that's what penetration test is. Anything that has an IP address or anything that is electronically, anything that is running a piece of software, and blah, 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 all those things requires a kind of a test which tells what vulnerabilities might be present in those devices. So penetration test can be a web application test, mobile application, IoT, network, infrastructure, a physical pen test. And so, for example, from your computer, servers, car, mobile applications, the mobile operating system, and everything, there is a penetration test for that. And how you perform the actual test is something that a lot of people confuse it. If someone is coming and just throwing a bunch of tools, then I would not recommend going for that pen test. Tools are necessary, tools help a lot, but the human mind should be involved in there, trying to understand what the process is, how things work, what is documented. And so that is kind of an actual penetration test. There are other variations of penetration test, which the definition is something that always keep changing around in the industry. So we have offensive security, we have penetration test, those kind of things go together. We have red team assessments, red team operations. So in penetration test, for anyone who is not from the industry, you go like with a bazooka. You don't care about anything else, just like John Wick or Rambo 4, and you complete the test because your ideology is to find the vulnerabilities, and uh, in a scenario you are not considering the defensive mechanisms. You are probably whitelisted, and that's how you do a pen test.
Okay.
So
Very interesting.
that's why a lot of people also go with some commercially enterprise tools, and then they do not use Metasploit, Nmap, or other burp suite or other variations of it and do the process manually. They just go with some high-end tools and they scan it out, extract it, and tools don't find out business logic flaws. They will just give us out low-hanging fruits, and not in today's world. In today's world, AI is there, but we have not reached at a place where AI can replace a human being. The other variations, that is a red team operations or the red team assessments or engagements, is something that you are trying to have a real life scenario where, okay, my organizations have defensive mechanisms in place. Give me some points how you would be able to enter the organization via the internet, external, internal, all those aspects are there. So for those assessments, the time duration is probably more, a month or a two, where only a few people are involved from the defensive side of the team. For example, I'm coming to Escape and doing a red team. So
Yeah.
probably only Tristan knows that, okay, Harsh would be performing red team engagements, not the defensive people or not anyone else on the team would be knowing. To get an idea that, okay, if I'm trying to something, obviously it's also trial and error. I'm trying something, the defender or someone might pick it up. And so what is Alexandra doing if she is the lead of the blue team side? What is her response? To see whether we are ready for a breach or an attack or a threat or not, just to give an idea. The last option, which is quite famous in the industry, but it is not done in the way actually it should be done, is the purple team simulations. In purple team simulations, you do not consider the reconnaissance thing. both the parties, the blue team and the red team, sit together and they see what defensive mechanisms are there and whether they are configured or they are done it in proper way. So for example, I would be given low-level privilege access to all the devices, all the critical infrastructure. And then from there, I will try to pivot, I will try to drop a binary, I will try to perform enumeration of the devices and stuff. And then I will try to show that, okay, I'm getting the shell or not and all those stuff. And the defensive mechanism will also, blue team people will also sit there. They will look at that, okay, we have a trigger on this asset and this is how we would actually report in a real world time. So it's kind of preparing both the teams that, okay, if there is an attack or not, and how the teams will respond in scenarios like this. And then wherever I do it, I recommend to document everything. And because teams keep changing on in the industry. So if we have done something, if it's not documented, then tomorrow if Alexandra leaves and someone else comes up, then they have completely no idea what is the procedure. If there is a breach, what is the procedure? If there is a threat vector, SOC thing, so people are not aware of these things in the industry. So this is like the entire thing, entire industry revolving around these terminologies.
Like you mentioned a lot of different types, and processes, like physical
Yeah.
pen testing, then application software pen testing, red team. When someone just starts, like how do they educate themselves about like what are different possibilities? Because I like integrated cybersecurity not that long ago, and my first book was Hacking APIs. So it's kind of like
Oh, by
Corey.
Corey Ball. By Corey
Yeah,
Ball. Yes, yes.
I saw Alexandra arriving at the office at her first day with like hacking APIs as like a book, and I was like, whoa, she starts like very strong, very technical.
Yes, so
You
I
have
tried
that.
to install, Kali Linux or Parrot on my Raspberry Pi, but go as well as I expected. But like, how does someone, get to know like what the different possibilities? Maybe someone here, also gets excited about physical pen testing, bringing donuts to someone's, to a company and trying to actually hack them from inside. Like, where do we start? Where does someone need to start?
I would always recommend someone to see what their personality or what their thinking is, and that would eventually decide them whether they want to go on to which side. So I I always agree, or I always believe that that should be the person's decision on which side to go, because this is something that you would do like 1/3 of your life if you are in an offensive security or a defensive guy and stuff like that. So that decision should be made by an individual. Obviously, all these things are connected, interconnected. So even if I am in the offensive side, it doesn't mean I don't know the defensive stuff. I know how SOC works, and it kind of helps me to understand how to fool them if I'm doing an actual assessment or something. So at present in 2024, there are lots of resources, content creation, YouTube, Twitch, certifications available in the industry that one can do and pursue. A lot of knowledge is also available for free via blogs, Medium, some platforms. So
And do
one can.
certifications, do they really mean something? Because there is like always a debate in cybersecurity about the certifications. Like, is OSCP, offensive security, like really useful? Is it a honeypot for cybersecurity professionals? What's your take on this? I'm really curious about that.
Yes, so I would not say that you have knowledge only if you have certifications.
Yeah.
Obviously, certifications, depending on how you do the certification, a lot of students see the
Yeah.
education in cybersecurity is unfortunately capitalization. So you are not learning much into the schools and universities, and like that would land you a job. So a lot of students, because they want to land a job and they realize after completing the university that, okay, I'm not going to land anywhere, they go and
Yeah.
do the certification process. I would say rather to it's an ongoing debate. Depends on how we do the certification. There are some certifications based on MCQ. There are some certifications where it is a real like thing OSCP, where you hack stuff in 24 hours. But those certifications are expensive. When I was a student or uh, when I started into the industry, you would not have a $1,500 subscription at that point, right? So, but a lot of those information on how to attack servers and how to attack web applications are available on the internet. We have a Git book, Medium blogs. We have a lot of documentation. We have some books that share that knowledge. So that is the thing. If you're interested in certification, if someone is sponsoring, then you can do whatever certification you want. That is a good choice, but learning doesn't stop there. Everything is evolving. So learning doesn't stop with one certification or two-step certification. But the idea of researching vulnerabilities, if you are in the offensive security, especially, you should know how can I research a vulnerability, how can I attack a vulnerability, and how the vulnerability actually affects the organization. Those are the things that if you are able to research and learn on your own, then I believe you can take out pretty much any certification or in the world and stuff like that. A lot of people buy. There is also a term called as script kiddies or something. So because they are not able to understand how the exploit works, they just get the exploit from GitHub and they just run it. I would say everyone starts like that, but eventually, if you want to, eventually, if you want to come to the industry, especially on the offensive side, you should know what is happening, how the exploit is running, what is happening in the background. Look at the documentation. If I'm interviewing someone who has never seen the documentation, then I would say that you are not on the right path.
And do you think so? This is an interesting thing because when we interview people, like when we do the podcast with security professionals from the defensive side, one of the common
Yes.
advice, because we ask for advice to the young generation, and you will have this question at the end of the podcast too. One of the common answer to this question is people willing to enter cybersecurity for defensive professionals should learn how to code before. And do you advise pen testers as well to learn how to code and to understand how applications and networks are built in order to be good pen testers and good professionals? Is it necessary to understand how a network works and how application works in order to be able to properly do a pen test?
I would probably suggest to know your strengths, like the individual strengths, and then make a decision upon it. A lot of people look at other people and how they have entered into the industry, but they don't have the background like that. So, for example, some people are developers and they transition into cybersecurity. So they can be good application security engineers because they know how the development is being done. So they are familiar with one or two languages and backend and front end and all those stuff. As an entry level or as someone as a mid level, you would only require to know coding if you are doing source code reviews in the offensive side. That means you're looking at the code and trying to find out where things can go wrong. Apart from that, I do not ask for the person to specifically know coding. And the coding that is required in offensive side to write POCs, I think ChatGPT or those modern languages like Python can easily write it for you.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to write everything in C where everything is kernel level or low level, right? So those things are to be kept in mind that if you know, it is always an advantage. But just to enter into pen testing, you should learn a lot of other areas first rather than to learn a Python or a Ruby code. But yes, whenever you encounter any script, it should be your nature to look at the script and search about the functions and the objects that are being used. For pen testers, there are 3 languages that are often used. One is Python, other is Ruby, and I think Rust and Go are also getting a lot of familiarity in the industry. But
isn't Metasploit written in Ruby? Is that the case?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
that's
so that's
why.
that's why a lot of people learn Ruby because they can write their own exploits and then you can directly import in Metasploit because Metasploit has a lot of options like Meterpreter and all those things, which that's why in the last 4 or 5 years, a lot of hackers were learning Ruby.
Brings back a lot of memories to me, Harsh.
Oh
My
yes,
early days in cybersecurity when I was playing with reverse shells in Metasploit, and I almost got thrown out of my university because of it. Yeah. I did learn cybersecurity in university, but not the way they expect you to.
oh, then you will have trouble.
Exactly. And so, like, what we discussed so far is that when you're trying to do real penetration test, it's not only like vulnerability assessment, it's like a real life scenario. Like you're trying to put yourself in a real life possible situation where someone is trying to attack the company, to hack
Yeah,
his way into the company
yeah,
with the people in the defense like blue team waiting for it and trying like or not waiting for it and to see if they can catch the attack.
yeah.
But what is the limitation to reproduce like a real life situation? Like, is there any limitations, things that are different between pen test and real life hacks?
Mm, everything is applaudable at its own place. Everything has its own value when it comes to pen test. If it's done in the right way, then it will surely show what are the loopholes, what are the things,
Yeah,
and where you are lacking. In terms of creating a real life scenario, it depends on how valuable you are. Like people are always attacking big companies because they know how much value it is. And
yeah,
so it is always a debate how to create the real life environment. But my approach or my understanding is that education to the people is much more important when a real life threat. Because cybersecurity doesn't come from if you read one book, you will understand everything and yippee, now you are ready. So it is better to keep it as an exercise and
yeah,
and and educate people that okay, threats like this come up, what you should do, what you should. It's an interesting and funny story actually. I wanted to meet someone who is on the beauty side, and so I went to his workshop a couple of years ago. The workshop was very basic, so I was not expecting to learn much from it. But I wanted to meet the person and discuss someone who was quite recognized into the industry. So I was sitting there and I was looking at it, and then I saw the approach that they used. So I was it felt very funny to me because a lot of SOC people, when any threat is there, they use which binary it is. And if it matches with the kernel level or system level binaries, then they don't tend to do it or take it ahead. Now, as an attacker, we have an advantage because if I'm dropping something, I can drop it with that name or with the similarity of it. And what happens here is that they do not check the hash. If there are two things with the same name, then
yeah,
the hashes are available for the different binaries and hashes don't change. So for example, the basic example here is that if you have a Windows computer, there is explorer.exe always running
mm,
in the background. The moment you click the file explorer, you would be seeing my computer, Windows C and
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
I realized that a lot of people are, a lot of training, because it is basic training and how everyone starts. This is a big thing in the industry that no one looks at it. So sometimes what I do, and I do it from a long couple of years, and then I also train people who are on the defensive side that look at the hash and try to match it with the original hash. That's how you know whether something is tampered or whether it is original or not. People just see that, okay, it's java.exe, so probably we have a Java language, and Java language can do a lot of things on a computer.
yeah.
So they probably ignore those threats. So I have seen in my assessments when I deal with SOC people, and the only place where technology has evolved, AI has evolved, is the SOC industry. Now we have a lot of analysis, whichever tool
Yes,
we use. We have a lot of analysis and a lot of things that is just given to the person. The hash, the threat, the virus total is integrated. Most of the antivirus, what are their opinion is. So I think the SOC industry, after 3-4 years, I'm seeing a lot of AI coming into it. So if someone is in the SOC industry, probably it is the right time to switch. I'm not sure, but everything is given, like with accuracy, 90%, 80%, and those are uh, those are accurate at this point. Even when you drop or a shell or anything, it detects it, and then how you use it, and then I would not go much into because that would be a 0-day kind of thing, and how we attack. Uh, don't want your podcast to be flagged, but but yes, I will not go there. But yes, I've seen SOC.
Thank you for that.
I've seen SOC evolve, the tools evolve in a much
and
positive
and
way.
do you find other tools like apart from the SOC that has evolved and that made like the job of a pen tester harder to
No,
find the
no,
issues? No, it's
no.
always easy. You always end up entering anyway.
Yes,
Yeah.
the tools, the
Yes.
tools, the tools are. There is always a human factor here, right? Like you
Yeah.
can do social engineering, you can do, and that, and amazingly that works sometimes. I am surprised to see that we are we are trying to escalate our privileges and whatnot and using our mind 100% in attacking an organization. And then there is always the social engineering guy or a girl, and he or she comes up and fools someone who is at a much higher level in the enterprise and gets complete access without just by writing an email. And this with this
Yeah.
Grammarly and Chat GPT. I have not seen people now making English mistakes, grammar mistakes at least, when you're writing an email and stuff like that. So yeah, using tools in an engagement can help, but if you're relying only on tools, then that is not something that would be recommended from the offensive side at this point. If I'm just relying on the tools and stuff like that, doing only vulnerability assessments, then that is not a recommended pen test. If you're using tools, taking that information, giving it to another tool, using your brain, trying to figure out the attack surface and stuff like that, then that is like a real life scenario because a lot of people in the industry do like that.
And do you have an example of like personal, success story where you used actually not as many tools, but yourself, kind of thought about different process, how to, find the vulnerabilities within our organization, like that you're maybe the most proud
Yeah.
of, or I don't know, the funniest one?
Yeah. So there are lots of success stories in my career, and I would always give an example of one or two because sometimes you are not expecting something to happen because in our industry we call something as zero trust, but a lot of people or a lot of companies don't follow it. Zero trust is something that if you are taking a third party or something from a library or any code from a different or that is not written by you, you don't trust it. You do your own assessments and test on it, and then you import it. Sometimes in a mobile application, we use the web views and everything to facilitate the mobile application to view as a website.
Oh.
So doing that, we are also importing everything that is a problem in web application. So I have lots and lots of stuff where we were able to replace a what do you call a third-party library on a mobile application that gave us a complete access to the phone and like a user level access to the phone, but we were able to navigate the phone and navigate the permissions, and we were also able to see the contacts because the contact permission was given to the application. When you start an Android application, sometimes there is a lot of permissions that come up. You don't read those permissions because you are in a hurry to see the login screen. I don't know why, but then you just accept the permissions, yes, 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 and everything. So because of that application, now we were able to see the contacts. We had a reverse shell and everything. Now that was local environment. You can also take reverse shell like this by using some proxy and tunneling services that are available, absolutely free of cost. So that is also that is something that we were not expecting. It was a chat application we dropped. So I am giving something to Tristan. Obviously, curiously Tristan will click on it, and because
Click.
we have used what we call a uh, I would just say dot slash path traversal kind of thing. So
Path
it
traversal, yeah.
goes back into the thing. So because we already reverse engineer the application, we know where the library was. So we
Yeah.
use the correct number of dot slash. So we are in that library, and because the application has permission to access and modify the libraries that the application is
Yeah, so you
using,
can
and
have
there
like
was
direct access to the phone's data, to the person's data.
yes,
Were you able to activate like the camera and the microphone, like
I think
remotely?
that much. I have done that in a different scenario where
Okay.
we do
That's
that in our
frightening, dude. That is really frightening.
yes. Actually, I also have that binary that we use. So we
Hmm.
showed through some. Have you ever seen that a diplomat never carries his or her phone? If someone is in the ministry level or any kind of those
They're
people,
right
they
to do so. Like it's a good thing actually.
yes. So when we do trainings, we show them that you should not carry your phone because there are lots of sensors in
Yeah.
the mobile phone that you have absolutely no control over. So those can predict whether you are on the second floor, first
Yeah.
floor, third floor, and all those kind of things. So yes, what you are talking about is we call that as a RAT. So you can also create RAT by yourself using Metasploit or any other tool,
Yes.
or you can even go in Android Studio and try to compile everything by yourself. And then there is also another option where you can combine two binaries and then send it to someone. Binaries, I mean like application, and send it to someone. So the person thinks that, okay, this is a legit Facebook or any kind of WhatsApp application. And when he installs it, it would be shown some kind of similar to that application, but in the background, the access is being given. And have you heard of those modded applications that are hosted on that? Okay, if it happens into the gaming industry, so if you want like Shadow Fight or any of those gaming applications where you have to
Hmm.
buy something, so what people do, they try to mod the application, and why after modding the application, because gamers will download it, they also
Hmm.
have backdoors and everything installed in. So you are playing the game and enjoying the game where the other peoples are taking advantage of the situation in general.
So
So
you mean like inserting like a Trojan inside of like
yes,
a game?
yes,
Yeah, that you download
yes,
on the internet, right?
yes.
Mm.
That's why it is recommended to download things from Play Store or App Store, not from anywhere else. But
And to check
sometimes
the
malware is also hosted on Play Store and App
yeah,
Store. We
and
have
to check the hash, the sum of the file, also to check that it was not like this is what you said, right? Like you verify the checksum of the file.
yes,
Um,
yes, yes.
yeah,
But
because you
mm,
want to be sure that the file has not been changed or altered by malicious
yes,
persons.
but people want to play the game, and this is a lot of people I'm talking about, and I've seen that they want to play the
Yes.
game with the full features and stuff. So they download it, and you cannot check the checksum in that game because it is already modded, right? That's why you're
Yeah.
getting everything for free.
Yeah.
So those things don't apply. And I have
Yeah.
seen some modern malwares and stuff that the moment you install, whether it is a computer or a mobile phone, it replicates itself into something else. So now it is completely
I
compromised.
mean, I got a lot of lessons to tell to 12 years older me, to be honest.
Yes.
I think I installed plenty of malwares on my mom's computer when I was a child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vicky, I had because right now we talk a lot like about manual testing and tools testing. And I think if
Yeah.
we come back, to and actually on a personal level, I would say, because games, I mean, we install it more like on a personal level. And if we come back to the organization side, and especially like in the beginning of the podcast, we were talking about investments, how do you think the organization should strike, the right balance between the pen testing in-house and using, the tools like DAST or, SAST and the all like scanning tools?
So that is always a
Question?
complex question. No, that is a genuine question
Yeah.
because you have a limited budget, and from the organization standpoint, you have a limited budget, so you have to invest precisely. So, and a lot of companies fail in doing that. That is what my general opinion is because I have seen. I'll give you an example, and we'll start with an example here. That so, for example, if your offensive side is completely outsourced, then you should not be probably owning any of the tools that the offensive guys use because you have a budget limitation, and if you have uh, outsourced that, then that should be something that would be on your last in priority while you are buying out tools and stuff. SAST, DAST, those are part of something called as DevSecOps. So DevSecOps are like three words, and they are merged together. That is development, security, and operations. Now, in the first 7, 8 years of the industry, every assessment was happening after pushing the code into the production. So after 8 years, we realized that that is not the right way to do it because now vulnerable code is in the production and then we are testing it basically. So a lot of people would say that we have a shift left or shift right approach, meaning that when that code is being developed, you are performing security assessments, threat modeling, and everything on the code, security architecture reviews. Like just to give a small example, if there is a login page being developed, then you prepare of what can go wrong in the login page. What are the vulnerabilities that can exist in a login page, and all those exercises are performed. Because of this thing, one good thing has happened in the industry that a lot of developers have acknowledged the concept of secure coding. And because of that, you would not, if the process is done in the right way, you will not see the same vulnerabilities being coming up. Obviously, there is always a room for business logic flaws in an application. So that is something that most of the scanners do not cover today. And a lot of talks and presentations and has happened that how to break an application using business logic flaws uh, and stuff like that. When it comes to SAST and DAST, you have to understand that, for example, if multiple teams are working on different projects, every week or every day, the binary is being compiled with the code that is being generated or with the code that is being there in the GitHub repository or any other repositories if the organization is using. And these tools, SAST and DAST, will pick the binary and scan it automatically. So we call it as CI/CD pipelining, that is continuous integration and continuous development. So whatever you write is being integrated, is pipelined, and at the same time you're developing, at the same time you're testing. For a layman's language, it is. When it comes to SAST, it scans the binary and sees what is there. Is there anything that is dangerous, like source code? In source code, whether you have APIs, token keys, and some regular expressions are given to identify those. When it comes to the DAST, the application is being run, and then you do a lot of fuzzing and those kind of stuff. So it is a modern way of breaking the application while it's running. And yes, it reduces a lot of human effort when you are testing because now you know, okay, how the application is reacting to certain kind of payloads and where I can use my mind and try to break the logic here. So those kind of things are continuously running in an environment, and then the reports are generated, and then at the end, a human being looks at the report, and then the parameters of pen test or those offensive is performed. So it doesn't mean that the pen test is ignored, but a lot of effort is already done while you come at the pen testing stage.
And did you ever, like, if you're pen testing, like I'm talking about AppSec specifically because this is the context of this podcast, right? Not about network penetration testing or organization level penetration testing. But when speaking about AppSec penetration testing, have you ever found an application or a scope that was like you didn't find anything relevant, like very, important, like not like code injection, not access to the database, no access control problems. Have you ever seen like a DevSecOps process that was so strong that even a pen test couldn't find any like important and critical issue?
So I would like to tweak the question here
Yeah.
because in
Okay.
the first,
That's a first.
yes, in the first attempt, you will always find something because in my experience, there is something to find or there is something available. When the
Okay.
process carries on, you would see that, okay, the developers are getting smarter. They are understanding the secure software development lifecycle. They are understanding the secure coding principles and then those things. After that, you will, but still there are some kind of vulnerabilities which I call as business logic
Mm.
flaws that would happen. But then that would, after few iterations, it would be a rare sight to see. If the DevSecOps practice is properly followed, it doesn't mean that you completely ignore the pen test part, but then you are building a lot of things simultaneously at that point. Like the developers are getting smarter, a lot of things has been done by the tooling. You have pre-hand reports of fuzzing that, okay, I don't need to look at those variables and payloads because they are they are tested in much efficient way. And a lot of organizations, what they forget doing is to upgrade the process itself. So fuzzing does not remain the same after 1 or 2 months. There are new things being added. So that's what I say, that how effective you are doing is depends on how your research is on the concepts and on the implementation of the processes. If there is new changes in the DevSecOps cycle, are you implementing it?
Mm.
Obviously, even if you do everything 100%, no one will guarantee that the product is uh, unhackable because there is
Yeah.
always 0 days, there is
There
always
is always
something
something.
lurking. And that's what when comes third-party libraries, when a lot of applications for their rendering purposes, for their performance purposes, for their day-to-day life activities, they tend to share code. So no matter how much you do DevSecOps on your own product, but if there are third-party libraries being integrated or involved in the process, then that can be a major issue as well. To cite an example here, imagine a scenario that you acquire someone in 2005, 2006, or even today. Now, when you have acquired, you have done the deal, but you don't know who were the developers who developed that product, what kind of security assessments they perform,
Yeah.
and suddenly you added more than 100, 200 applications, or your scope increased by 100, 200. Now, what you will do is you will perform things that, okay, what is at this time point, what is the most important thing for me? So you will probably pick those 10, 15 things into your asset, and the rest of the things uh, are just lying there somewhere. And
Yeah.
those, the rest of the things, because you are not developing, they are becoming outdated. And later in your company's history, that can be problematic because they are not being updated. No one is looking at that part, and obviously they are being ignored but they are indirectly being used in the product. So that's why the zero trust and everything has come into the picture, because a lot of companies acquire a lot of companies, or a lot of companies use open source tools and libraries. So if you have not developed it, so you don't know how to fix it, how to patch
Yeah.
it. A lot of extra effort is required into those processes.
And what is like the current problems that you observe in the security industry today, like things that are broken, things that don't work in today's security
Yes.
landscape?
So a lot of companies actually, when I do consulting or when I go with there, a lot of companies actually they don't know what they own, and it seems a little
They don't
bit
discover.
scary.
Yeah.
Yes, it seems a little bit
Yeah.
scary to me because
Yeah.
the first problem is you should at least know how much things you own over the internet or how much things are
Yeah.
registered on your name, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
asset management, asset inventory is a big thing today. A lot of people don't do it properly or they
Properly.
have
Yeah.
outdated things. Other things is when the technology evolves, people are not evolving or the procedures are not evolving for that technology. So, for example, our security concepts come from application security or computer security, a bit of data security. But after 2019, 2020, we can see that, okay, OWASP top 10 for API, OWASP top 10 for mobile, OWASP top 10 for IoT, and LLMs, and all those things. And now we are putting that effort that, okay, now security is different for every other aspect, like for cloud, for this and that. And obviously, there is a circle which overlaps among different technologies. But before that, it was not there. So same concepts were being applied to same technologies,
Yeah.
and that was a kind of a disaster when you see, because you should have uh, OWASP like top 10 or a methodology for each
Yeah.
individual platforms. And so an Active Directory is a big issue at this point because everything is configured in default. So default is
Yeah.
insecure in our industry, to be very honest.
We know about Active Directory. Like Active Directory is like one of the main like targets. When you find one,
Yes,
you want to test what's going on.
yes.
Uh, and so if you like, there are many also like young security professionals that listen to us on this podcast.
Hmm.
What advice do you give to them that are listening to us today and that are willing to like improve their cybersecurity career and grow as cybersecurity professionals?
I think first advice, if you are a student,
Mm-hmm.
advice is not same for everyone because you have to first figure out where you are in your career. If you are a student, then uh, I would uh, I would suggest you to keep your options open, whether you want to go into offensive side, defensive side, purple
Mm-hmm.
side, or if any other color comes up in near future. Keep your options open. Just don't tie yourself that, okay, I want to only do blue team, but then your thinking is not related to blue team. Blue team, then it can be a little bit disaster. So know yourself. What are your strengths? Uh,
Yeah.
what are your weaknesses, and then you can go on from there. If you're already in the industry, then follow people who are doing notable work into the industry on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and see where the industry is going. New vulnerabilities are coming up, new threat vectors are coming up. Try to know the terminology and how things work in the industry, not in your country, or how things work internationally, industry wise, and then you can progress alongside your career. If you're someone who is looking for a transition, example, you are a developer, you are someone, and cybersecurity is for everyone. I see, I see a lot of people asking that I don't have a technical background. Am I fit into cybersecurity? Oh, yes, you are absolutely able to fit into cybersecurity. I have seen, and my students in the past uh, have been school dropouts. They were waitresses and like people who didn't even knew or technology before, but then they had something called as dedication and consistency. So because of
Mm.
those, they were able to break into the industry, and they were, because we need a lot of professionals at this point to fill out the gap, and uh, that's why it is better to bring people or like I've even seen lawyers coming out into cybersecurity because
Okay.
you need a lawyer degree to present in the code.
That
Yeah.
I have to say that is a very frightening combination.
Yes, I know. Yes. So, yes, that is my overall advice. If you are learning
Mm-hmm.
something new, try to learn it practically rather than just going into the theory. And there are lots of platforms and content creation, blogs, books available. And this is not 2015. When I started, it was not there.
Yeah.
It was not there. A lot of things were not there that are today. So today you just have to invest your time, not even money, because a lot of those things are available for free, and then you can try your path out. When I started in 2015-16, there was no proper guidance. There were not much people giving back to the community. There were not. I still remember I like messaged 11 or 12 people on Twitter. Only one of them replied, and yes, that's how I it started. So
Yeah.
yes,
I mean,
only one
it takes,
person replied, but
yeah, it takes a lot of effort and perseverance for sure. And I think actually, like usually the last question on a podcast is about the book, but I think what could be interesting, for listeners and based on your experience, because I saw you were doing, Advent Hack Me calendar, and you like,
hmm,
for some people, like actually it's a lot about hacking as well, the pen testing in some way, not depending on the profile, as you said. Do you have
hmm.
any recommendations of who to watch or who to learn from this part for
Yeah,
someone who
absolutely.
wants to know?
Yes. Yes, so we'll start, since this podcast is application security, we will start with application security and then we can move forward because everything is overlapping. If you are attacking web application, with the web application, you can take access over the server on which it is hosted. So I think John Hammond, Rana Khalil,
Mm,
and Nehemsek.
mm,
Then there is this vulnerability disclosure POC kind of guy, bug bounty reports explained. So that is a fantastic channel. He would go out on HackerOne and other, and he would pick one vulnerability, make a video out of it, and also try to recreate or reproduce the vulnerability if enough information is available.
Yeah.
So those are the things. Jason Haddock's Z
mm,
Shano, that is Zeano, is available.
mhm.
These guys used to stream. They are still streaming. We have then David Bombal and Network Jerk that produces content and that brings people on their channel and who are experts in certain domains, and then they see how to. So those are the two guys to follow, and I also already mentioned Rana Khalil. Then there is someone called as IPSec. So IPSec, IPPSEC. So what IPSec does is that he performs walkthrough of a lot of CTF challenges and hack the
Yeah.
box servers, but those are pretty much in detail. I'm not seeing someone going in that much deep, and he doesn't. He has a passion to do what he's doing. You can clearly see. So that is one YouTube channel I recommend, and yes, once you will start following these channels, you would see a lot of other recommendations coming up. I also advise people to create a new Google account, and then that would be your education, so you are not distracted with other recommendations that are
Yeah.
coming up.
Mm.
So yeah,
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, great. Well, thanks a lot for a great conversation. And yeah, we're towards the end of the podcast. It was very interesting, and I hope among our listeners, people some like become motivated, to learn more about it and
yes,
Yeah, and I will
to
definitely stop taking my phone with me all the time because now I will be worried that you're listening to me.
yes, yeah. Phone is
So,
a technology.
yeah,
Sorry.
thank you, Arsh, for accepting to be our guest, and it was an awesome session. I'm looking forward to seeing it available at the podcast.
Yeah, pleasure is all mine. It was nice talking to you and share experience, and I hope someone after a few years down the line should come and tell that, yeah, I watched you and that's how I started my journey. Then That's what we
Yeah.
are all that's what we are all hoping. That's what giving back to the
Yeah.
community means. So